Hello, this is your instructor, Mr. Aguilar. We're going to convert a drawing from a previous course, CAD 101, into a three-dimensional object. This object is called the pivot arm, and you're looking at the orthographic of this drawing. I'm going to do a file save as and rename the file. I will instruct you of the file name later. Our layers are set. I'm going to create a new layer for working in 3D. Give it a bright color so I can see it, and set it current. I will need information of my drawing, so I'm going to use a split screen. So under the View tab, I will click on Viewport Configuration and separate it to two vertical views. I will remove this title block as it is no longer needed, as we now know how to use title blocks in Paperspace. So looking at my information, it looks like I need to work on the top view to make this more simple for me. So let me move some items out of the way using the move command. And I'll work here in the top view. Looks like I need to extrude some circles to form cylinders. So I'll need the measurements of those here. I don't see my 3D drawing commands here. I need to switch my environment to 3D. So I'll click on Workspace Switching. Let's go to 3D Basics. Let's click the Extrude command. Pick our first cylinder. Hit Enter. Type in the height of the cylinder, which is 1.5. Notice how it turned yellow because my layer that is current is the 3D layer. Let's repeat the command with the larger cylinder at the same height. Let's continue that on the other side at 1 inch. Let's see how we're doing. There's our cylinders right there. We have a base feature that needs to be drawn and elevated 1/8. Let's create that base feature based on the information we have already. If you recall, the way these lines were drawn, they were snapped tangent to these circles, which is why they do not meet at the intersection of the center line and the cylinder. It's based on the tangent of that circle and line. If by any chance you had drawn yours incorrectly, in which the in which the inclined line intersects with the center line and the circle, you may want to redraw those features. So let's assume I did this incorrectly. I'll erase my lines in order to correct them. I will pick the line command and activate tangent snap. And I will hover over this yellow edge. It doesn't know where the tangent is, but I'll just pick anywhere here. And then hover over here to where I see the tangent symbol, and AutoCAD will do the rest. I will find the line that is tangent to both. As you can see, it took care of that for me. So repeat this if your lines were not tangent originally. You pick line. The snap we are using is called tangent. And you just hover from one cylinder to the other, and it will create the line for you. Let's check to see where I placed them. Alright, to place them on top, not down here where I wanted them to be. All that would imply is how I would draw this feature now. Instead of moving it up 1/8 after I draw it in 3D, I will bring it down a distance. I don't see my dimension commands here. I'll just type out dim linear. There we go. Alright, so I need to bring it down after it's drawn. So I'll be bringing it down 1 1/8. Alright, currently these are just 2 lines. Serves no purpose to me. I need a solid object that I could extrude. So I'm going to use a command called Polyline and create a closed polygonal shape. So I will select Polyline, and I'll trace the outline of my part. I'm looking for 4 endpoints. First endpoint, second endpoint, third endpoint, fourth endpoint, and back to where I started, and then hit enter. Now I have a solid object in which I can extrude, as you can see here. Alright, let's extrude this object. I'll pick it from this view, this object, enter. I want to go down and type in 1/4. Alright, so it's created. Now I need to move it down 1 1/8. I'm going to split views again to see a third view. Here it is. Under the Visualize tab, I'm going to go to 3 views. Put this one back as a southwest isometric so I can see my solids. Keep that as the top, but here I want to go to a side view of some sort so I can move it down 1 1/8. Was that the feature? That is the feature. Okay, so I need to move it down 1 1/8. So I'll pick the move command. Right here is move. Select this object, hit enter, select a piece of that object, point down, and type in 1 1/8. Did it go too far? Let's find out. It did go too far. So if I typed in 1 1/8 and it went further than 1 1/8, what could be going on? Now I had to do some thinking here and see what's going on. Let me undo the move. Oh, I see. Let me turn on the color here. It's not at the top of this feature, which I thought it was in. It's at the top of the shorter feature, which is over here. So I don't need this 1 1/8. I need this measurement. 5/8. So let's move it down 5/8. Move, select the object, enter, pick a feature of that object, point down, and type in 5/8. Now it makes more logical sense, and it is where it should be, as you can see here. Alright, so that feature is complete. So we're going to have a cylinder removed from the entire feature that needs to be subtracted out of the object. As you recall, we just made a base that is currently cutting through the cylinder. So we are going to subtract the cylinder from not only this large feature and this small cylinder, we're also going to subtract it out of this base. So watch the technique as I use a command called subtract to remove the holes from these features. Alright, in order to see that better, let me rotate this in a way which you can see how it's going to work. Alright, so we'll go right there. Alright, and to help you see better as well, I'm going to go to Southwest Isometric in this view and work here. I take off the color, I take off the shading and what have you so you can see better. The command is called subtract, and this is the technique. For subtract, you pick first what you're going to subtract from. You hit the enter key, and then you subtract what you want to remove. So you subtract, the first step you pick is what you want to keep, and the second one is what you want to remove. The three items I'm going to keep is this cylinder here, and the base we created. What I want to remove are the two interior cylinders. So we'll do this all at once. So pick subtract, pick the large cylinder, the other large cylinder, and the base, and hit enter. Now it's ready to subtract. Select the interior cylinder and this interior cylinder and hit enter. Let it do its calculations, its math, and you can see it subtracted out these three features, and because of that it also, I believe, merged, yes, it unioned the other parts. So now they're all together. The two cylinders and the base are all now one. So let's complete this by drawing the trapezoid. Let's work in this view. First we need a closed polygonal shape, which we do not have. So we're going to draw that first. Before I begin, let me just remind you something about working with multiple viewports. Select the view you want to work in before you activate any commands. If you do not, the command you're using will be reflective on the UCS layout of that view. For example, here the XY plane is facing in the direction of the object. Here the XY plane is looking down on the object. Here the XY plane is facing the object from the front. If I were to make a trapezoid here, but I start here and click the Polyline command and then click over here, it may not allow you to draw the polygonal shape. As you see, I'm not able to do. I can't grab this point here. I can't grab this point here. I can only pick these 2 points here because this vertical y-axis is related to the orientation of this axis. So let's take a look at what I drew. I just drew lines up and down on this feature. So that doesn't work. Okay? So that line right there is irrelevant to me. I need to click in the view first and then draw. So Polyline, pick 1, 2, 3, 4, and back to the beginning. Now I have a polygon that I can extrude. Now you're thinking to yourself, if I extrude this in any direction, it's not going to completely envelop the cylinder when I union them together. And that is true. So I really do want to make the cylinder enter both sides of it first before I do any extrusion. I don't pull this over like this because it changes the angle of the extrusion, and I won't be pulling this side over this way to bring it in either. I'm going to draw this feature within the object of the cylinder. Within the object of the cylinder, I have a lot to play with here in between here and the hole, and on this side, as you can see from the green hidden line. So let's draw some lines to prepare us for this task. Pick the line command, select over here, just come over a little bit over this way, doesn't really matter where, and place that right here. So I could have something to snap onto later on. Let's work on the other side. As such. Polyline command and trace this outline. It's slightly different, but you'll understand the reference when I use it. So Polyline and follow this path. We'll start here. 1, 2, all the way past the blue object line to here. 3, 4, then the corner. 5, 6, and back to where we started. 7. And then hit the enter key to stop. And here's my closed polygon. So here's our polygon. Let's find out how thick we need to extrude it. Let's go to the top view and look for some information. I see something right here. It is 3/8. So let's extrude it 3/8 and make sure it's in the right place. So I was working on this view. My 3D object is over here. How am I going to get this object that I'm about to create over here so I could align it so I can extrude it? Well, We have a command for that. Let's work on that over here where we have more room. Actually, let's just go to one viewport so you can see the entire thing as I demonstrated. Okay, go back to a southwest isometric. There's my polygonal shape around here somewhere. I need to find it. I'm going to turn off some. Okay, there it is right there. Okay, so I turned off that layer so I could see my polygonal shape. I need to move it over here before we can extrude it. So let's get ourselves ready. I'm going to need to use some object snaps in order to grab the quadrants of these cylinders. And the two-dimensional object snaps we're going to need are quadrant, maybe center, maybe intersection, but we don't need tangent. Okay, so let's try this out. Okay, I'm doing this for the first time too, as you may be. Type in the command called align, A-L-I-G-N, enter, select the polygon object, and hit enter. We're going to pick 3 points here that reflected 3 points over here. So one of those points will be, let's say for example, this corner of this object. We want to move it to the quadrant of this shape right here. If you're having a hard time remembering what is what, we're putting the top of this feature right here, this curved shape. This point, I can't use that point. Let me start over again. That point is not even up there. The point that is there is this corner right here. This corner right here. Those 2 points I can use. And now I have to be clever to figure out a third point. So let's see. Align. Select the object. Pick that end point right there. That should match to something over here. I hope it does. Nope, don't see anything to work with. So I have a plan. And that plan would be to put back on my object lines. And I need to use some reference points. I'm going to use this as a reference point and this as a reference point. So I'm going to make these 3D. And then I'm going to take off my object layer again. Now I have lines to work with, even though it's not part of this object. But I can use them for the align command. A-L-I-G-N, enter, select this object, enter, this point here matches along this curve, it matches this point right here. In addition, this point right here will align with the upper part of this base right there. And finally, the top of this object or the top of this object will meet either here, the top of the quadrant of this cylinder, or the top of the quadrant of this cylinder. I can see this one, so I'll use that one. So I'll pick this one here and move it to here. After you pick all 3 points, the object will move and align itself as it rotates to the object. Let's see it happen. Okay, there it is. Do you see that? Alright. If you see too much yellow and it's driving you crazy, move stuff to other layers if you'd like. I'll make it a dark blue. Alright, there it is right there. And it's in line where it should be. We do need to extrude it 3/8 of an inch, but we're happy to be in the center of the object, which means we need to extrude it and move it. Let's extrude it 3/8 and we'll move it backwards, moving it by using midpoint. So extrude this object, enter. We'll just go that direction, point that way, type in 3/8, and then we'll move it back. Make sure midpoint is on, and pick the move command, select the object, hit enter, pick a corner of it and move it to here. See that? So we're going to go snap to the end point of that and move it to here. You could also do it over here, or up here, or even here, or here. So endpoint to midpoint, and now it's moved where it belongs. Let's take a look and see how we're doing. Not bad so far. Alright. Typically it'd be wise to save our work as we progress, so I'm going to click a save and then continue.